All right, back at it. And as you can see up here at the top, we're going to move to the topic of social development in adolescence. We've been talking about all these different theorists, all right, all these different types of development with cognitive and physical development, moral. Now I want to comment a little bit on the social development during your years right now. And the guy's name, all right, that I brought up before is Eric Erickson. Erickson said that we go through a series of stages of what he called psychosocial development, and every stage presents a conflict, okay, that we have to try to overcome or make choices on before we can move to the next stage. So according to Erickson, you guys are in what's called the identity versus role confusion stage. In other words, it's a time in your life where you have to almost choose an identity, answer the question of what do I want to do with my life? What exactly is my purpose? How do I want to present myself to others? Okay. And teens that can't settle down on a singular identity, Erickson says, go through what's called role confusion. All right. So you could even add the question of what do I want to do with my life? What I'm not asking you guys to pick your major today, pick your career today, but those questions are going through your minds a lot more now than they were back in seventh grade, back in fourth grade. All right, it's becoming much more real. So the pictures I've got here, all right, hopefully we're not laughing at these. These are people who've obviously chosen a lifestyle and chosen an identity. And we are in no place to say that this is the right choice or the wrong choice. What a psychologist would want to know is, are they comfortable with this identity in all aspects of their life? All right. If so, then we there's no point or no place for us to judge. All right. This goal, all right, this whole idea of choosing a self allows you to make that greater transition to independence. All right. If these individuals, dress like this and tattoo their bodies like this and have no problem whatsoever, say, sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table, then more power to them. All right. That is what we call a stable sense of self. But if they only act and dress and tan their bodies, all right, in certain aspects of their life and not all, that would be what we would call role confusion. So I just challenge you guys to think about your lives for a little bit and think about the number of selves that you might have. All right, psychologists say you have what we would call your home self. That's the way you act in front of mom and dad. You have the way that you act in front of your friends, the way you talk in front of your friends. All right, the way you act at school, in the classroom, and then there's even the possibility of how our social media shapes our identity. Sometimes it can shape it in positive ways, other times it can shape it in negative ways. Okay, we can hide behind that identity. Erickson says the overlapping of these identities can become very uncomfortable. Take me, for example. All right, I am not in this stage anymore. I have chosen my identity. All right, what you guys know me as Coach Klein, is how I present myself in all aspects. How I present myself at home, in front of my family, how I present myself um, in front of my friends, when I'm coaching, when I'm teaching. That's all just the same persona. It wasn't always that way, but it was a process, like it is going to be for you. And I've stabilized, if you will, my identity. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys also take a look at a link, all right, that I'll share with you. It's a commentary on how social media shapes our identity. So please give it a read and then follow the prompt. So I want to hear your thoughts on how you feel social media has impacted your life positively and negatively. All right, I'm not going to take points off for opinions, obviously. All right, to make sure that this stuff is reaching you guys. Okay. Okay. So one other thing that I'd like to talk about with you guys in this edition is the relationships that you have. All right, and the book puts it pretty clearly. Relationships during the adolescent time period is as follows: a diminishing parental influence and a growing peer influence. I think you all would agree that the impact your parents have on you right now is less than the impact your peers have on you. And that wasn't always the case. I'll show you a graph a little bit later. We had a much greater parental influence when we were younger. We were much more dependent on our parents. Now, uh, we feel a lot more independent and we turn to our peers for a variety of matters. Okay? Found this statistic very interesting. When asked if they have serious talks on a regular basis at home, 85% of parents said, yes, we have serious talks on a regular basis. Whereas 45% of their kids, 45% of the teens surveyed said yes. So there's obviously a disconnect here. The parents think that they're having these serious talks. Less than half of the teens are hearing any sort of serious talk. So there must be um, a miscommunication. Perhaps teens just are choosing not to listen to what parents would believe are those serious topics. All right. And so, why is there a growing peer influence during this time period? In psychology's opinion, is approval matters. Approval matters to a teenager. To be seen as belonging and to be seen as respected by others, you need certain people's approval. And you've gotten your parents' approval for so many years, now it's time to turn to your peers. You don't turn to your parents to find out what's cool and not cool, or where the latest trends are. You turn to your peers. Psychologists call it your cliques. We don't say that in our everyday language. Mom, I'm going to hang out with my clique tonight. That sounds weird. We don't even say, Mom, I'm going to hang out with my peer group tonight. But you all have them. All right. Everybody who's listening to this has a clique. That clique could be 2 people. That clique could be 13 people. Okay. The size doesn't necessarily matter for our purposes, but it matters that you have one. Those individuals, as the definition says, provide a network of social and emotional support. Yes, emotional. That helps you move toward greater independence and development of your identity. Who you hang out with shapes your identity also, not just who you are, but who you're surrounded by. And I like that word emotional support, because you might be thinking, we don't cry. We don't cry on each other's shoulders. Maybe some do. First of all, some friends do need that emotional support. But if you've ever turned to a friend as like a sounding board, let's say you are pissed off at something. You're pissed off at me. You hate Coach Klein. So what are you going to do? When it might not be appropriate to tell me off to my face, you might complain to your buddies about Coach Klein's class, or maybe you're angry with your parents. And so you vent towards those buddies of yours. That's emotional support. Okay, and that's a necessity during this time in your life, without a doubt. Even though there is a diminishing parental influence, they're still around, okay, in many ways. Parents, guardians, grandparents, that can all fall under this next area. And here's the conflict, is that you're on the left, right there. You want independence. You want your own rules. You're tired of being told what to do. You're so close to being out of the house onto the next stage of your life. Many of you, it's college. Many, it's a gap year, whatever. But on the right is your parents' mindset. Your parents feel, as long as they're still under your roof, their roof, they have the right to provide a little extra guidance, a little extra structure. And if that's the case, then they have that right to give you the advice they think that you need. Okay? And teens and parents that can't come to a compromise with these two, it leads to conflicts. The good news, though, is most conflicts between parents and teens, most, not all, but most, if you think long and hard about them, are minor, short-lived, and often ridiculous issues, right? You stayed out past curfew, you didn't do your chores, you might not be getting a good grade in a class, and so your parents will ground you. You'll have an argument, and then one day or 2 days later, water's under the bridge, and you move on. That's pretty much the types of conflicts this time in a teen's life, with the exception, all right, of certain circumstances. That's not a real conflict. A real conflict would be, let's say your dad needs to borrow 10 grand because he's in some need of financial help, and he never pays you back. That can make for a larger conflict, and that's things that would happen maybe in my age range more frequently. That's a bigger conflict that doesn't just wash under the bridge after a day or two. Okay, so think about that for a little bit in terms of the type of conflicts that you have. There is an influence though. That influence your parents have, according to the book, are on topics more related to maybe questions about your spirituality or religious faith, choices for your career, choices in college. That's when the parents really seem to step up, and you seek their approval in those matters. Okay, one final chart here, all right, that I wanna share with you. Let's see if I can make myself go away. Is maybe I never was. Was I always here? Um, this is taken straight from the book, and it says the percent of kids who feel they have positive, warm interactions with their parents. And look at how many positive, warm interactions are in our early years, our childhood years. All right, a majority of the time, all right, there is positive, warm interactions because that's the shaping of a kid's behavior in those ages. But then as you drift towards early adolescence, ages 9 to 11, that's emerging adolescence as we call it, there is a very diminished influence and a diminished warm interactions with parents. And if we put a second chart right on top of this one of interactions with peers, the bar graph would probably go in the opposite direction, right? I would think you would agree. Okay. All right. Thank you for listening to that. I'll have a couple things for you guys to think about and work on in this section. All right. And when you hear from me again, it will be about a couple remaining issues. We're going to start getting a little bit deeper, maybe a little bit darker, and some more intense issues. And then we'll be ready to move on to another chapter. All right. So again, thank you for listening, and please do the assignments, the work that I have given to you.